if you don't make people dream when they enter a store of Bulgari, you've missed the point. And if they enter, they're looking for something more. That's what we need to deliver. And this is this emotional part that is absolutely key.
When we are in love, whether with a person or luxury, we're often drawn to something that resonates deeply with our deep sense of self. It's like that moment when your best friend looks at a watch and tells you, look, this watch, this is so you. I believe, based on my research, that both romantic love and love for other objects like luxury brands go beyond basic needs, tapping into deeper aspirational and inspirational desires.
How do we identify what people like in the brand? And is desirability similar to likability? And of course, if we could find the secret of love, we cynical marketing people would be extremely interested.
Welcome to Luxury on Air, where we explore the trends, innovations, and personalities defining and redefining the luxury industry.
Welcome back to another episode of Luxury on Air. I'm Felicitas Morhart, and today I'm thrilled to talk to two guests that form a fascinating duo, a luxury brand executive and a scientist. Our luxury brand executive is Antoine Pin, who has been managing director at Bulgari Watches for 5 years and who was just appointed the new CEO at Heuer. And then we have Dr. Stephanie Cacioppo, one of the leading authorities on the neuroscience of social connections. She is courtesy assistant professor at the University of Oregon and author of the best-selling book, Wired for Love. Her research takes us on a fascinating journey into the human brain to better understand emotions of love and desire in romantic relationships. Together with Antoine and Stephanie, we will enter a dialogue about the parallels that can be drawn between the relationships we have with our romantic partners and the relationships we have with our luxury brands. We will talk about the mystery of love at first sight, the role of identity and values in meaningful relationships, and the value of emotional bonding with customers and employees.
Hello, extremely happy to be with you today. Very, very excited to have this discussion with Stephanie, who is an amazing person, and you. I very much look forward to this discussion.
Thank you both so much. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here with you today and discuss a topic that is so close to my heart. It's very humbling to be on your podcast, Felicitas, with Antoine.
Thank you. Antoine, let's kick things off with you. Could you share your journey at Bulgari and how your role has evolved over the years there?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, to give you a global perspective on my career at Bulgari, I spent a total of 9 years, 4 years as the head of Greater China and the South Pacific. And so in a regional role, connecting very much to the local clientele. And then 5 years as the head of the watch division here in Switzerland, developing the activity across the globe this time. So it's been the challenge being very much how you create an important interest for watches when the core business obviously is the jewelry, and how we've been able to progressively build the legitimacy of this activity along with the development of the jewelry business.
Fascinating. Well, and you obviously were very successful with it. Stephanie, your research on romantic emotions like love and desire is really groundbreaking and novel in the academic realm. I mean, I feel that being an academic myself. So can you quickly explain how you got into this research?
Yes, thank you for asking. My being here is due to two main reasons. Number one, my love for science. And number two, my science on love. And my whole journey started actually in Switzerland. And I started studying romantic emotions like love and desire. And all began with a deep poetic fascination for how the brain processes human connections. And I was born an only child, Felicitas. So I've always been intrigued by the power of relationships and how they can shape our lives, our well-being, and our performance.
That's a very personal take on on research, which I find very fascinating, especially for your research, and something that is probably so impactful, right? Because it really is connected to real feeling and real being in life. We will come to that in our discussion. I would actually really love to start with you, Stephanie. Now sitting together with a luxury expert, a luxury executive. What would you say? How does the subject of luxury intersect with your work? What are the similarities between love and relationships and love for luxury brands like Bulgari, for example?
Yes. So I would say that we are luxury to one another. As humans, we provide a unique value and richness and fulfillment in each other's lives. And so the intersection of luxury and my work is in the shared neurobiology and the shared neurobiological foundation of emotions and connection. I believe, based on my research, that both romantic love and love for other objects like luxury brands go beyond basic needs, tapping into deeper aspirational and inspirational desires.
That's beautiful. Antoine, what is your take on this subject?
But, probably to give you a bit of a insight on how we ended up talking about this the first time, we were both attending a Bulgari event in California. And so obviously, while you're introducing each other, you introduce your work, the area of work. And we naturally ended up talking about this notion of desirability. And it's a word that's been so much used in the luxury industry. You want to raise desirability. You want to raise desirability. And it's coming back and back and back. And eventually, when Stephanie told me, well, I'm working on this concept of the creation of desire, we started talking about this discussion, and it sort of raised the question also in my mind: what does desirability mean? How do you measure it? We are basically asking. We do what we call brand surveys, brand tracking surveys, and we ask people, what are your intentions to purchase? And are you interested in the brand? And what do you like in the brand? It's very rational. It's very technical. But how do we identify what people like in the brand? And is desirability similar to likability, to traction, to appeal? Those words there are different words for different reasons. And of course, if we could find the secret of love, of course, we cynical marketing people would be extremely interested. So this is clearly, I'm extremely down to earth in this discussion, but it's interesting to think of the fact that mankind is driven by desire and not only for people, but how far can we go to draw the parallels between desirability between human beings and products, and how far can we not go? Because obviously it's not the same thing. Is the question we ended up talking about when we met.
Very interesting. And also what you're saying, like when you do surveys with customers, they give you a cognitive, nicely sounding rational answer. But I also heard from some colleagues the saying customers are liars. So even if you ask them in a survey, you're not going to get the truth, especially not the emotional truth behind. That's
Exactly.
fascinating. And I was also wondering, when you mentioned this parallel in your discussion, I was thinking about the mystery of luxury brands. Oftentimes we talk about this dream of luxury, that it is something that you so much desire, like, the person you have dreamt of, for example.
Yes, I'd like to add also one thing to the prior point, if I may. Mm-hmm. It's like love often starts with an emotional spark in a relationship, a connection that really feels special. And the same is true for luxury brands. Our attraction to a luxury brand often begins with an emotional response to the brand's identity, the craftsmanship, or the story, like Antoine said. And just as love in a relationship can grow over time, our attachment to a luxury brand and our desire for the luxury item gets stronger as we invest more of our emotions into that brand and our identity, our values, and our experiences into that brand. And when people answer brand surveys, in their deepest heart, they are really convinced that they tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. It's a cognitive perception. But what we know from the different scientific studies is that most of what we feel, what we think, and what we do is unconscious, subconscious. And one of the key turning points in my research on love and desire, understanding how much of our emotional life is actually driven by processes we are not fully aware of. And that love is not just a conscious emotion, but also a fundamental subconscious part of our lives and our survival. And that's why when we are attracted to luxury, a watch at first sight, most of it is driven processes we are not fully aware of.
You can imagine the shock when I found out that all the surveys we were making were useless. Probably they're not useless, but there is this distortion between the outspoken perception of customers and the reality of the ignition of desire. And that was very much the big question we were asking ourselves when we discussed together. This element that clearly creates a gap between the conclusion we may draw from the discussions we're having with customers and the reality of the feeling.
Very interesting. I totally agree that there is a gap here to fill, and where neuroscience definitely can help.
Sorry, and to address your question about the mystery, it's related to this invisible subconscious drives that we all have. And the element of mystery, whether in love or luxury, taps into our natural curiosity and desire for discovery. It pulls us in because it suggests there's always more to discover, more layers waiting to be revealed, whether it's in someone we really love or a watch we really love. And there is behind this mystery a promise of something just beneath the surface that can captivate us and make us better.
So you say it has to do with discovering something about yourself. So can you elaborate a little bit on the aspect of identity here? So has love something to do with defining yourself or finding out who you are?
Yes, absolutely, Felicitas. When we are in love, whether with a person or luxury, we're often drawn to something that resonates deeply with our deep sense of self. It's like that moment when your best friend, look at a watch and tells you, look, this watch, this is so you.
Oh yeah, we know this, yeah.
It's not about the price. It's not about the color. It's mostly about why and how this watch reflects who you are and who you aspire to be. I was asking one of my friends why she bought this luxury watch to her husband. And she said, honey, that's simple. This watch is sexy, classy, eye-catching. It's confidence on his wrist. She was defining aspects of the self of her beloved husband.
And there is a very funny exercise I do sometimes when I'm running interviews, recruitment interviews. So it's very interesting to ask people what is the luxury item they cherish, their favorite one. And it happens quite often that they mention a brand or the product. But if you make them talk above and beyond the initial impression, they will quickly talk to you about the moment, the person, the reason why they cherish. And the reason why they cherish is very often related to the moment or to where it's coming from or to something that is connecting to their lives or their identity rather than just the product. This watch is key because it was my first luxury watch, because it was my graduation watch, because my father offered it to me. This dress is key because it was my engagement dress or the dress. And there are so many stories connected to the product, and so much so that the product stands for the non-material elements related to it. And clearly that connects to the person himself, rather than purely the product. So there is more to the product.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, you're saying that this comes with a whole layer of meaning in life. And this would probably also sound to the ears of our listeners who are attracted to luxury, that luxury is not just a superficial thing. There is much more to it. And I think this discovery aspect has very interesting facets, because you very much say that it discovers, or you discover something about who you are right now. But is it also possible that it has something to do with who you aspire to become in the future? A more inspirational form of identity discovery?
Yes, absolutely. In my book, Wired for Love, I discuss the concept of self-evolution. The idea that our identity is continuously evolving. Our self is evolving constantly. And luxury brands help us discover these new aspects of ourselves by creating these deep moments of personal connection. Like Antoine said, and it's not just about the craftsmanship or exclusivity, it's about the experience. Who I am when I buy this item. Why? Who are you? And this really aligns with the person you think you are or the person you think you want to be. And that, as a byproduct, can enhance our self-expression and helping you explore deeper layers of who you are. And that also connects with philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, who spoke about self-creation and where our choices really help us define who we are.
That actually sheds new light on research that has been done on exactly this aspect. And I think it's really worthwhile to look into this. There is research that has been published in the Journal of Consumer Research by authors Daphna Gore and her colleagues. And they have shown that people who consume luxury brands can feel inauthentic because they feel like, I'm not yet there, and they feel kind of an imposter syndrome. But what you're saying is so a different aspect of it, that yes, it can be that it's not yet my authentic self at the moment, but it is a very inspirational self for the future. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when someone says to you, oh, this is so you, they are not just talking about a watch. They are talking about who you are. They are confirming the connection that they feel you have with your deeper self, with your true self. And so as a consequence, you can see the watch as a source of inspiration, something that reflects who you are and who you aspire to become. And sometimes luxury can serve as a bridge between who you are right now and your future self. And in this sense, you can really connect. Antoine.
Yes, there is this, we talk a lot about this notion of status symbol. You've made it, you've not made it. And there was this famous quote of Jacques Seguela, who created a shock. But someone is extremely smart, and he says, if you've reached 50 and you don't own a Rolex, it means you failed with your life. You missed your life. And somewhat it's very much about this, what you're projecting and how much of Rolex as a brand is a status symbol, and a very symbolic one, but something that you want to project to the eyes of the others as well. So it's your projection, it's your goal. And this code, which seems a bit outrageous, somewhat is summarizing this projection that people are doing. You may agree or not agree with this statement, but beside the name of the brand, and the key point is really the notion of what a luxury item represents for the person.
Yeah, and maybe even signaling to myself that I made it, right? Maybe
yes,
tap on my shoulder and say, yeah.
There could be, and what you mentioned, a cognitive dissonance between who you feel you are right now and who you want to be. Because if luxury is driven by external validation rather than a genuine personal connection or satisfaction, they can result in cognitive dissonance.
Thank you very much for that. I would like to build on that and talk about what is the advantage of being such an emotional brand or the advantage of being loved. If I take the case of Bulgari, it's a brand that comes with a lot of passion, Italian heritage, a lot of temperament, a lot of color. So what is the advantage of a brand when it evokes so strong emotions? Or let's take it differently. Is there some customers who feel overwhelmed by so much emotion?
There is this question of the rationality of your purchase. And there is a very interesting book called Love Brands, which basically explain that some brands have managed to push the emotional side so strongly that clients do not think rationally when they make the purchase. Think of moving out of the luxury segment, but think of Apple iPhones, where and the rush and the craze around the 15th version of the iPhone, which basically delivers the same services as the previous one, but makes you spend an extra $1,500 for the new version without thinking whether you really need to upgrade your mobile phone. Think of supporters of football clubs who don't necessarily who are ready to sacrifice lots of elements of comfort in their lives to be able to attend the games every week. So there is a sort of you forget to put things in perspective and to confront the amount you're spending with the benefits, the rational benefits. So here, this emotional side in the relation to the product takes over the rational side. And it's something that clearly probably explain this notion of, the reason why we are very much interested by this notion of desirability, because this is what we're talking about. The sort of the need for the individual's brain to go beyond the pure rational perspective. Here again, I keep telling the people in our stores that clients, people, the enter a Bulgari store, they're not looking for an immediate delivery of a rational need. They look for something extraordinary, something that is the philosophical definition of a divertissement, something that diverts you from the usual path of days. And therefore you need something that comes out of, again, of the rational. If you don't make people dream when they enter a store of Bulgari, you've missed the point. And if they enter, they're looking for something more. That's what we need to deliver. And this is this emotional part that is absolutely key. And that's where the work of the sales associate is absolutely crucial. They must identify the part of the dream that the customers are unconsciously looking for when they're entering the store. This element that Stephanie was mentioning, that is this subconscious part is calling, and that leads the customers to enter the stores.
And do you know what they click with? Like, what is it that makes them fall in love? What is this element that makes them fall for Bulgari and not for Cartier?
No, that's what we don't know. Of course, we try to rationalize. It's what you would call between people the intuitu personae, this magical link, because the reason is so individual in that sense. The connection is so unique. And probably, again, understanding the way desirability builds up would help us to understand this unique interaction between one individual and the maison and the product, because it's not just a maison, it can be a collection. It's extremely complex.
Stephanie, do you have some hypothesis to help explain how people could fall in love with Bulgari? Does it have something to do with something profound where they connect with Bulgari that doesn't connect them with another brand?
Yes, I have several hypotheses that will need to be tested, Felicitas. The key is really to understand that a deep emotional bonding, a deep desire is crucial in forming this deep connection and this love at first sight. Whether it's in a relationship or with brand, when the luxury brand, for instance, evokes these strong emotions, it transcends reason. It transcends traditional segmentation based on demographics like age, wealth, or status. Instead, it really fosters a deep connection through authentic experience by resonating with the consumer's value and the consumer's true self.
So we go into values here, which is actually something that we can understand with our rational mind. So maybe we can go a little bit deeper into that. So values are something very specific and not everyone has, for example, Bulgari's values. So how do you deal with this then, Antoine? So can you relate to that consumers actually click with your brand based on the values that Bulgari espouses?
Yes. I mean, this is something, and that's very interesting because the modern ways of communication, and we're talking about social media, digital, allow us to somewhat connect with people we would not have connected with in the past. And through probably the clarity of the presentation of our values. In the past century, I know this may not touch everybody, but the way the people would work on media buying, they would somewhat identify some categories of people and expect that when we advertise in magazines or on TV, we talk to a category of people that match what the brand is about. So we would consider a category of population that we aspire to as a brand without any certainty that this category of population actually does fit with the brand. But this was the only way to reach out. So we were having assumptions. So luxury industry would try to communicate with potential clients through very chic magazines, because those magazines would be purchased by potentially customers with a certain level of revenues, and hopefully they would match with us. Today, the beauty of social media is the fact that we're building communities that match with what the brand is about deeply, in the sense that it's easy for us to expose the brand and for the people who like the brand to connect deeply with the brand, in the sense that people are then following us on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, wherever, and interacting with us, reacting to the posts, etc. Basically, you're building a community of people who are deeply connected to you. But to build this community, you need to make sure that they fit with the good reasons. And they will only fit with you over time. So they will really be engaged only if we share the true essence of who we are. Therefore, our values. Mm-hmm. So the way we communicate is not just about, how can I say, going back to the love at sight, there is the instinct, this first connection, which is love at first sight, but there is also the construction of the relationship over time. And clearly, if you're putting too much makeup and dressing up, and the reality is very different the following day, probably the love affair will not continue for too long. And that's the point of working on who we really are, because again, in reality, we communicating so widely, that we build such a large community of contacts. It's largely enough for us to develop ourselves, as long as this community is the right one, and we don't build a connection on the base of a first lie, in a way. So great to make up, but not so much that we don't really look the same the day after.
Love at first lie.
Doesn't work. I confirm. Business-wise, at least, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's probably also tricky then if you go abroad, right? Because then we have to do with completely different values in terms of culture, right?
Not necessarily. That's where, we have different ways of expressing ourselves. And again, I tend to think when you're talking to different communities with different value, and it's true, there is this cross-cultural communication. In a way, I tend to take the example of the way we as individuals, we communicate. The way I talk to you, the way I talk to my boss, the way I talk to my kids is different. I'm still the same person. The way I would talk 20 years ago is different from the way I talk today, but I'm still the same person. So I've changed. But fundamentally, some elements stay the same. So the key question is, how do I share the fundamentals, the values, in a way that fits with the person I'm talking to? Mm-hmm. My right profile is different from my left profile as an individual. I can show the brand's values, but with a profile that fits with the person I'm talking to. So the way we will talk about Bulgari in China can differ from the way we'll talk to Bulgari in the United States. But Bulgari remains the same. It's just a matter of exposing probably a profile that matches with the local population. But it doesn't mean that we are altering the identity, the true identity and the values of the brand.
There's one thing that I really find interesting that you're mentioning also about changing, but changing together. And Stephanie, probably that's also something that you're looking into in your work, like a marriage, for example, evolves. People evolve within this marriage. So is it also about sharing the same values and evolving together in the same direction to keep this going? Or, I mean, to prevent the divorce so that people do not buy Bulgari anymore, but go to Cartier? So is it about this so that you evolve together? Stephanie, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. Based on the research, sharing deep values is a strong predictor of lasting relationships. Yes. And so the key for a brand is to really find a common ground between their value and the value of their consumers and grow together as one over time. And like Antoine beautifully said, the self one had a few weeks ago, a few years ago, might not be the same self that they are experiencing right now, but they are the same person. Like if you were taking the book as an analogy of the self, the book can have different chapters. It's the same book. It can have different chapters as we evolve in time.
Yeah, absolutely. That also brings me to one crucial audience of relationships, which is employees. So I think the relationships that a company wants to create is on the one hand with their customers, but of course only as good need to be the relationships that the employees create or have with the brand. So what is the challenge here? Like, do you need to have employees being married to the brand, or is it okay if they just have an affair, or if they, stay for a while and then divorce? Or so what is the model that you're searching right now for your employees, Antoine?
That's a tricky question. I would say as a brand, we're not jealous, but we like long-lasting relationships. Also because, again, we talked about values and we talked also about emotional elements, and those elements stay. We were mentioning this emotional connection between the product, the brand, and the client, and the memories. As I said, the people who talk about their favorite item, they cherish those items for many, many times because they have great memories connected to those items. So it's true that we like the long-lasting relationship with both with the staff, with the clients, with all stakeholders. We build up on these long-lasting relationship. And if we bring things back to the economy, it's true that we like repeat purchases. We like to develop the relationship with some customers because we're engaging in a journey that is. But let's say it's rare when you build this connection that you lose the client, because actually through different purchases, through different occasions, the client will consolidate his or her relationship with the brand, with the maison. There is there is a lot of intimacy between a maison and the clients, especially when you're talking about jewelry. There are lots of personal elements when you're purchasing a piece of jewelry. And those personal elements, you don't necessarily want to share them with many other people. It's sometimes things are very private. I mean, you're getting married, or you're having an affair, so you don't necessarily want to expose this to a lot of people. So when you've built the relationship with the brand, you've also built the relationship with people, and you've built, let's say, better that things stay within the scope that makes sense. And again, you're building the relationship over time. Many love affairs. I mean, we talk about people. We say 50% of the couples divorce, but 50% of the couples never divorce. And I think that's where this is also we should see the positive element there, because with the average age of wedding age and the life expectancy, it means that some relationship can be very, very long and they support this length.
There are several interesting things to unpack here. You were talking about jealousy, not being jealous as a brand if your customer maybe also has other brands in their portfolio. And very interesting that sometimes customers themselves can become very, very secretive or mysterious about their favorite brands because they don't want to share them, which is actually not in the interest of a company, right? But there is this thing, like something that you really found is perfectly fitting you. You actually don't want everyone to wear the same or to have the same thing, right? Right? So how do you deal with that? Is that love going overboard? People don't want to share this?
I think you've got the two options. Sometimes you're right. You don't want everyone to be. I mean, there's a bit of exclusivity that we're talking about. It's like love, like the relationship between people. But it's true that sometimes we see the opposite. We see people who are happy to see other persons related to the brand, because it's also, and that's probably more the rational part that says it. If I'm thinking forward, thinking deeper, I'm thinking there's a lot of reassurance when you see other people wearing or using the same items as you, especially if you're projecting your values onto the people you see wearing or using the items you're using. And I would say when you want people to share, to basically use the same brand as you, it's the rational side in you that talks. And when you don't want it, when you are jealous, it's probably the emotional side that talks.
Yeah. So I would love to give the word also to Stephanie on the unconscious thing here. So thinking about one person who is a luxury aficionado, but who has several brands of jewelry at home. Stephanie, do you think that people really can love several brands at the same time, or there's really this one where the love is truly reserved for?
Well, that's an interesting question. Based on prior research from other scientists, that consumers can indeed form deep connections with multiple brands, especially when those brands represent different facets of their identity or value. Just as in human relationships, where one might have deep, meaningful connections with multiple friends, consumers can bond with different brands for different reasons.
Yeah, makes total sense. Like if you ask somebody, they can love their children because they're in the role as a father or as a mother, but they can also love their lover, of course, and they can love their pet and they can love their employees, probably because you're always in a different role, right? And the relationship is a different one and has a different function probably in people's lives. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Wonderful. Wow, this is such a fascinating discussion and has made so many avenues open for further research and hopefully also for managerial discovery. And yeah, I would love to hear from each of you. What would be the first thing you would like to research into now after this conversation we had?
Thank you for asking. I think there are many avenues of research we could explore together. One of them would be to really dive deeper into the simplicity, actually, of the connection between luxury and people's true self, and see how their subconscious desires can drive long-lasting relationships with a luxury brand.
Antoine?
Actually, I've tried to look for a very sophisticated and smart answer, but I think I love the mechanism of love at first sight, of what ignite the desirability, the desire for a product or a brand. And probably getting deeper into this question, understanding the gap between the product and the brand. And are you falling in love with the brand, with the product, with the connection between the two? That would be my question.
All right. So definitely not the love at first lie, but the love at first sight. That was my favorite of today. Thank you so much, Antoine and Stephanie, for this great conversation. It was just fantastic to listen to you both. It was a bit in the style of the monk and the philosopher. Our listeners can find plenty of more information about our speakers, about Bulgari, about the Love brand, of course, about Dr. Cacioppo's groundbreaking work on the neuroscience of romantic love in our show notes. So I would say, until next time, stay curious and keep listening to Luxury on Air. Thank you for joining us. And I just loved this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Luxury on Air with Corinne Sagari and Felicitas Morhart. This podcast is provided to you by Deloitte Switzerland and the Swiss Center for Luxury Research. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can leave us a 5-star review. If you're keen to stay up to date on what's trending in the luxury industry, don't forget to subscribe. As always, you can find more information about the current episode in the show notes. We wish you all the best. Until next time.